brought awareness of the importance of recycling to our school community. So I felt, again, it was important to honor those students who took part in that, because I think they did an amazing job, and Alessandra as well. So thank you, boys and girls, for making sure that we're cleaning our environment, that we're being held accountable for our environment, and I'd like to give you guys a round of applause. We have 11 students that are here with us tonight. And Colin Batts was not able to be here, but we have Paige Berge and her sister Taylor are here.
Come on up, girls. I'll live here.
We have Lila Cornell. I'm not sure if I saw her come in yet. We were not sure if they were coming. Mary Pham. Mason Foster. Dawson Genova. Skylar Hell. Zoel Hula, who I don't believe is here this evening. Ileana Levan, who's not here this evening. Aubrey McDonald, who was not able to attend this evening. Matthew Nolan. And his sister Sophia. Ethan Cipher, Ashlyn Suiza, who is not here this evening, and Hakeem Toonsey, who is not able to come this evening, but we will make sure they get their certificates. So again, congratulations, boys and girls.
They did 2 rows, guys. You know, mom and dad's everybody take pictures. All right. Here we go.
Oh, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt. We are missing one. Cameron Bates, who was the first person I said. Cameron, we'll get you a certificate, honey. Thank you for being so patient and not come up here. I'm sorry.
My wife graduating and leaving, going to Rikton. No.
Hold on, we still got pictures taken. You all good? All right, thank you guys.
Dr. Howell, I just want to say thank you not only to the students but also to the teachers who are teaching kids, I think, at a very early age how important it is that we protect our environment and recycle, particularly when it comes to things like single-use plastics, which is, I think, we're all starting to recognize the problems associated with that. So I think recycling, those lessons learned early are really critically important for our kids to stay governments and for our citizens. Thank you.
Yep, were you with that?
Okay, we're going to move back into our special board meeting agenda. Next on the agenda is public comments. And if there's anyone in the audience, whether they be members of the community or staff who would like to address the board, either topics relevant to the agenda or anything else that might be of value to the district, this would be the time. Okay, thank you. Seeing none, we're going to move into the next item, which is the personnel committee. That's Mr. Chapino.
So we have one item on this agenda this evening with 2 parts. The we'll take them individually. It's recommended that the Board of School Directors approves or ratifies the following appointments. Administrative staff, Kristen C. Testerman, Supervisor, Innovation and Specialized Learning, at an annual salary of $100,000 with an effective date to be determined pending receipt of required documentation. Can I give a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I'd like to say something.
Yes.
First, I would like to state that I have no personal objection to Mrs. Testerman. However, I will not be approving her appointment as Supervisor of Innovation and Specialized Learning. I was not on the school board at the time that this position was approved, but in looking carefully at the job description, I do not feel that we have the funds to support many of the initiatives expected of the role. Unfortunately, when looking at our budget, I cannot approve a program with no track record. It's a large expense in an area in which we have limited data. The board has been charged with containing costs and remaining fiscally responsible. I feel that as we begin this process, we could utilize existing resources. I believe this role could be fulfilled by an on-staff administrator or a team of administrators to concurrently fulfill this position and to grow the program while integrating their own areas of expertise. We hired Dr. Winters due to his experience in this area, and we also have a full contingent of IT specialists on staff to offer support. If this program is proven to be academically successful and is able to return outside student placements to Exeter, only then would I consider another high-paid administrative salary.
Any additional discussion? Ms. Hines?
I'm in a lot of agreement with Allison. I won't be supporting this position. I think right now with the deficit that we're looking at, which is about $2.5 million at the last count, including a maximum tax increase, I think our most important priority should right now be to control our new expenses, and I think this is one of those areas where we should look. I also spoke with the Governor Mifflin School District, a contact that I have out there, and they have much the same program as we do, but they didn't hire an additional person to staff that program, and they added it into the job function of one of the administrators that was already there, and I think that we should look at doing something along those lines.
Any additional discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
So I'm going to have to ask for a roll call.
Mr. Behrens,
No.
Mrs. Wilson,
No.
Mr. Chapina,
No.
Dr. Hamburger,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
No.
Dr. McClendon.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Mr. Gallo,
No.
Mrs. Stratton.
Sorry. Was that 7-2? Or 6-2? Motion fails. Okay. Mr. Payne?
It is recommended that the Board of School Directors approves or ratifies the following appointments. Nicole M. Peterson, Certified School Nurse at Lorraine Elementary, at a salary of $47,000. B, Step 2, effective August 21st of 2019, pending receipt of required documentation.
Second. Any discussion?
I'd just like to note we're a week late on this. National Nurses Week is last week, and I would just like to acknowledge and recognize all of the certified school nurses in the Exeter School District for all the things that you work on during the week, and sort of being surrogate moms like our bus drivers for all of our kids.
Any additional discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. This time I will accept the motion for adjournment of the special board. Second. So we are adjourned. So we're going to move directly into our workshop meeting. As most of you know, who've been here before, our workshop meeting is an opportunity for us to review next week's voting agenda in advance of that meeting. It gives our board members an opportunity to better understand the items on the agenda and have discussion. If there's a need for additional information, we have that period of time between now and the next voting meeting to get that information back to the board. At this time, I'll accept any public comments from anyone in the audience. regarding the board workshop or any other items that might be applicable to the school district. Seeing none, I'm going to turn the presentations over to Dr. Phillips.
Thank you, Dr. Hemberger. First presentation we have is Mr. John Casadas on May Day's Appreciation.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips. Thank you, Dr. Phillips, for appreciating the time that you guys gave me tonight to present this. I wanted to do this last year, to do all the rain and all the commotion I didn't get to. I just want to really recognize two people that really do up for the last several years with May Days, with some other things with Melissa, so I kind of wanted to call them out today. Just a little recap on May Days. We raised $6,000 for Exeter Community Education Foundation. Amy's been a great person to work with. She's top notch. On the Pie in the Face, we raised $3,500, $1,200 for the Exeter Community Library, $1,100 for Exeter Food Pantry, $900 for Exeter Canine Partners, another $500 for the ECEF, and another $500 for teachers in the park. I won the contest. That was my campaign manager, so brag a little bit there. Mr. Philby cornered Hess and teacher Peter Clark with the 4 candidates, and I won by pretty much almost a landslide. And then we also raised $1,000 doing 5K for Reach for the Stars, which is an organization in Berks County that helps Down syndrome people. We recognize 3 students: Abigail Henry, Grace Stirs, and Morgan Speck. That's been her mom, so I get her name and stuff a lot. Those 3 won for all they do in the community. And then Hamid Chowdhury came out and presented 2 awards. Which is the Community Spirit Award, in which Andrea helps me find those students. Brooke Speck also won that award, Morgan Speck, and Maggie McKinney was the second winner. So they got $500 from Hamid, and it's a nice trophy as well. So then we also recognized Anthony Myers and Burke's Hometown Hero Award. We got football players, 4 captains kind of present that award. We have a 17 jersey, Exeter, which is another for Burke's Catholic, as well as a certificate from my charity, Burke's Hometown Hero. So really proud of the way we had the event. It was community-driven, community-focused. A little bit different than the other May Days. It got some criticism. Some people loved it. So it was a great starting point. It really showed that the community can work together. Fire department, police department, school district, township. So I think it was an exciting thing to build on. And I'm proud of the way that it turned out. So I do want to call out Melissa Crotty and Andrea Fries, because in the last 2 years they've really been instrumental in helping me narrow down the 5 students that we recognized. And Melissa was all about helping with the band. We kind of did a little bit different thing this year. We had the jazz band play. Kind of wanted to do something different because I know that it's a big band now this Saturday. So just want to thank them for all their hard work. And it's not recognized. I go to them a lot. I talk to them a lot at night. So it's kind of I'm kind of pushy and annoying at times. So just want to thank them for all their hard work, and I got a little token of appreciation. Mike, did you want to?
I did. First of all, congratulations, folks. I'm going to ask John a couple of questions unrelated to this.
Before we go into that, I just want to say to you, John, I think that your dedication and commitment to our community through your amazing efforts at May Days is very much appreciated. You give 100% into everything that you do, and I'm very proud of what you and your team have done. Through your leadership, you've continued a tradition in our community that otherwise would have been forgotten. I grew up in Exeter, so May Days was important to me as a kid growing up, it was important to my parents. And if people didn't grow up here, they maybe don't realize that. You aren't even from here, and you realized that, and you saw that, and you made sure that it continued to happen, which I think is amazing that you took that on. And I look forward to what you do in 2020 if you can take another year. So thank you.
I talked to a lot of people. I kind of want to really bring it back to the way that it was back in the day. So talking to some other people that actually gave us some different ideas. So yeah, I think that was just the start of something exciting. And I do want to call out Amy again. Worked with her with Harry Potter, Dr. Peters, so which is really great collaboration. Love working with Amy, she's the best. Okay, and I'll take out my community service hat.
No.
Put on my chairman hat.
As most people know, and I second what Mrs. Stratton said, it was a great event. Spent some time down there over the weekend and enjoyed it, and I'm appreciative of your efforts, all the things that you do. Now, for most people who may or may not know, John is also the chairman of the Township Board of Supervisors. The supervisors took an action last night that generated a lot of interest on social media today. So I'd just like to ask you, John, what was the intent of your action last night, and what is the plan going forward?
Yeah, the park is open. There's confusion that the whole park is closed. Basketball courts are fine. We actually approved the summer basketball program last night. Tennis courts are great, fine. The millions are going to still be rented out. We make a lot of money there. The parks, our insurance company did it, said that the rides, the wooden rides were unsafe, and we had to get rid of them. So we're going to take down the rides. We're going to keep the fence up, because I know some people said that they had like names in the fence. They bought a fence, I guess, 10, 20 years ago, and they never put their names in. So we're going to keep that fence. We're not going to throw people's, maybe ready stick out. So we're going to keep the fence up. We're just going to remove the unsafe rides from the park. And just the land is owned by the school district. It's in St. Lawrence. The land along the river is actually owned by Exeter. So what we want to do is kind of, the lease is up in 5 years, so we don't want to start building another park, and then the school district wants it back in 5 years, what we're going to do. So we're going to send a letter to the school in St. Lawrence Borough, kind of get a good dialogue going, how we can work together, school, township, borough, what we want this park to be. We want it to be a trail system, nature system, maybe some of the students that I thought they could build a park, but we want to build another wood structures. We want to kind of get the community involved with some businesses. We're putting $10 million into Trout Run. We're redoing Pine Park. We're redoing Farming Ridge. So community park wasn't kind of on our radar, but there was upheaval of the articles. We're willing to work with the township, the school district, and St. Lawrence, and let's try to figure out what we want that park to be with the community. That's my direction. We gave that direction to the manager last night.
Okay, so what's going to happen on the next step? You're going to be
Friday. There'll be a letter that Dr. Phillips will get from the township saying that we took the rides out from community park and that the lease is up in 5 years. And again, before we just start building something else, we just want your input as to what you guys want, what St. Lawrence wants, because I think the three governing bodies felt.
So, in your estimation, the township is going to be a willing partner with the school
Absolutely.
district.
Yeah, we want that to be something.
Okay.
Whether it's rides, whether it's, in my opinion, I want to be a trail system, but if there's that passion for rides there, if the community wants rides, then we'll go rides there.
Can I ask a question? What happened last night?
Oh, at the community park, we decided we had to decide, community park happy landing.
Where all the kids used to play with the nice picket fence, with
Yeah,
all the
that the
things
wood-
that look just like they have the magic bonus.
That the wood is destroyed.
So what are you taking down?
We're taking down the ride, the wood.
Describe
The wooden
rides.
rides.
Are you talking about the monkey bars?
Yeah.
The wooden structures. So everything's going.
No, the ride, there's like there's gym rides, they're going to stay, but the castle and the wooden
Yeah, the
rides
castle.
are going to be going. Yeah,
Castle's the castle.
The castle.
You'd be a king without a castle. You'd be throw down your blonde hair.
But anyway,
So why can't we rebuild this?
unsafe. What's that?
Why can't it be rebuilt like Magic and Motor?
Yeah, check, right.
No, but I'm still waiting for my tennis court to be retired for over 20 years in my
That's to be done in the summer.
neighborhood.
That's to be done in the summer. That's to be done in the summer. One court, one parking lot.
Maybe 2 courts for 25 years.
Well, I do appreciate you being here, and I know that Mr. Aarons and I have talked a little bit about a partnership that the Governor Mifflin School District has created with municipalities that make up their district. And Hunter, I'll let you jump in for a minute if you like.
Before you go on there, the other thing that we've done that's pretty exciting is yesterday we created a Reading Country Club volunteer program. We actually are coming to the school district as well, looking for students to help. They want to do like horticulture, small engine repair for 100 dad, and we kind of want to, expand. Right now, we have 5 volunteers that actually work under the pitch, but I don't know who was at senior prom, but the grounds were beautiful. We opened the top of the ballroom in case it rained. It didn't rain, because I wasn't there. So we took the prom pictures, and we have a great committee. We're going to roll that out in the newsletter, and ask for more volunteers for the country club to help beautify it. So there's a real engagement and excitement. And I'm pushing that as now that I'm chairman to really get the community more engaged, more excited about doing things like this.
Yeah, touching off what Mike started on, the Governor Mifflin School District has what's called GMAC, or Governor Mifflin Area Coordinating Council. And it's basically all 5 municipalities in the Governor Mifflin School District and the school district get to sit down together every couple of months and talk about things that are at issue in the community. And I think this would be an excellent way to get that started, because I think our board, I think the township supervisors, and I know there's a borough of St. Lawrence as well, would probably like to be involved in creating a more unified approach to some of the issues that we have in the community. And I think this is one of them where all of our interests align, and I think that's really precious to not only Exeter, not only the school district, but also the borough too. So I think this is an excellent opportunity to try and get that started and keep that pathway of communication going.
The borough, the township, the school districts, and residents, I think we have a home run that we can correlate. So yeah, let's get started. Absolutely. And thank you. Thanks for everybody's time. Thanks.
The next presentation is Laurel Life Program with Dr. Mark Keck. Dr. Miller will introduce him.
In reference to our budget, special education tends to be an area that is heavily impacted by budgets all the time. The board gets an update each month about the students that we need to send out, because the needs are so high that we need to have other program placements to be able to provide the correct programming for our students. As you may read in the paper, see from other boards, other school districts, it's not just our school district that is being heavily impacted by the mental health needs of students, and these kind of needs have precipitated us sending more and more students out. Our current budget represents a very large number of students for transportation, aid support, and tuitions that are out of the district. Just as a ballpark, as far as an average, it can range from $30,000 for tuition to $90,000 for tuition and transportation and beyond that. So I'm saying average is about $50,000 per student, and it can range widely. In our efforts to bring to the board, as the board has asked us to, how can we kind of stop all the kids going out, decide the cost? Our kids have to be on buses for over an hour to Chester County, Lehigh County, Montgomery County. We have very, very few programs here in the county. And so there are little ones or older students who have emotional needs and mental health needs on buses for over an hour. Not a good idea. Students in special education, the goal is to have students educated as close or in the school district as possible. Laurel Life representatives here have been working in mental health and supporting school districts for many, many years. They have been working in other programming, and they've just begun over the last handful of years building this new type of program that they bring to the district as regular education and special education. It's cost saving. We're going to be showing the cost savings to our board. We have to make a decision: do we want to open 1 classroom, 4 classrooms? So it's going to be a big decision. The real benefit will be is it's not going to be your numbers. It's not going to be, wow, how are we going to absorb that kind of number? $250,000 per classroom. Every time we put in a number for Laurel Life, we're pulling out costs that's already in there for kids that are slated to go out of the district in tuition and transportation and aid services. So basically, to boil it down, the 4 classrooms we're talking about, we may decide only to do 1. That's still a conversation. We need direction from the board what they want to do. But if we do the full 4 classrooms from kindergarten to 12th grade, and our representatives here will talk more about what this is, and our 2 supervisors can answer any of the questions you have about more of the specifics. We estimate that the current numbers in the budget now, we would save the district approximately $100,000. The other piece to that is, I asked my 2 supervisors, because we have in our budget just students we now currently have out of the district. We have students that we know are on the radar to leave the district as more needs are arising. So we're looking at possibly 4 to 6 additional elementary students and 6 to 10 secondary students. We can all do the math, 60,000 per student is the average, 50 to 60,000 per student is the average. We definitely see this going up, and we wanted to bring to the board a suggestion of how to keep kids here, reduce our costs. Ole has been doing this program for 2 years, Governor Mifflin has been doing this program for a year. And you'll also be hearing from Laurel Lake about Eastern New York, who has been doing this for 5 years, 7 years. And the very last slide is going to show you the estimate, what they have saved in Eastern New York over the last 7 years, and that number is coming from the business manager, because I asked them, I said, they're going to say, where'd you get that number from? That number is from their business manager. So I will turn it over to our representatives from Laurel Lake. They did want to give you the background on why we're bringing you this presentation.
Good evening. I'm Mark Keck, representing Olean Incorporated, and tonight specifically our division of Laurel Lake. With me is Paul Mancha, our Managing Director of the Classrooms. I appreciate the time you're taking this evening to hear from us about the possibility of bringing our transition classroom model here to Exeter Township. As an organization, we focused the last 40 years, we'll celebrate our 40th anniversary next month as a company, and we've always focused on providing behavioral health needs for students across Pennsylvania. Currently, we operate in 15 counties, and we have a footprint of about 350 staff. This particular model that we're talking about this evening exists in 6 counties, and we have 18 programs in K-12. As Dr. Miller alluded to, our key program where this started was in Eastern New York 7 years ago, and of course grown to the 18 classrooms we have at the moment. As an organization, our mission is in easing adversity, inspiring growth. Students everywhere face challenges constantly. So we look at those challenges on the screen here this evening. You'll see that, as has already been discussed, the increasing cost of transportation and tuition is just escalating not only across the state but across our nation. More and more children are having challenges with mental health. IEPs are becoming more and more prevalent. The costs just keep increasing. The other challenge that happens is sometimes when students are out and outside placements, treating their needs, addressing the behavioral challenges, and sometimes when they return there are some educational gaps. Anytime we can keep the students in your building, we work on closing that educational gap and keeping them here, and all that, of course, translates into savings, as we've already discussed. So our purpose is really to collaborate with your district, with your special ed directors, with your team, to keep the students here. Everything from interviews of our staff to the placement of students happens through the integration and collaboration with our team in your district. So we won't move forward unless you're on the same page that we are, and vice versa. When we first begin to look at students, many times there are some challenges there that we see, and you will bring those up to us, your directors will. And we might provide services where we're going to take a look at what can we recommend that would happen right in your classroom even before the student comes to us. So as we go through the presentation, it's not just the number of students that will sit in the seats in the classroom. It's a footprint of students that are going to be impacted by our consultants if they work with your faculty as a team. So talk a little bit about our treatment approach. I'm going to ask Mr. Mancha to take over from here.
Thank you, Mr. Peck. Thanks you guys for all having me here tonight, this evening. We're going to really talk about what our transition classroom brings to school districts across Pennsylvania. We are a treatment, evidence-based treatment model. We utilize what is called an action regulation competency. It's evidence-based. It's based upon a trauma-informed model. We're hearing that trauma-informed care being a buzzword lately with students and kids coming into school, suffering some things outside, bringing that into school districts with them. So trouble at home, trouble with peers, trouble in that school district. We're seeing that increase across the state. What we do, having this in your building, is really to help bring those kids back into this least restrictive environment, which is your school district. provide them with the natural care that is here, that you guys have built, that you guys are experts with, and easily provide that transition them back to where they need to be. We're really strongly rooted in the brain science. You guys all have little brains that we gave you. It's something you don't have. That's my joke. I told Jerry that I always told a joke.
You just told us that we have little brains.
I know. It's extra. It's a bonus, right? All right. So we're rooted that brain science, which really, to break it down really simple, is just providing that resiliency and understanding what's happening to children as they develop if they're suffering with mental health and some trauma, and really understanding what they're bringing into school and that they're learning differently, and to really understand that developing brain is different than an adult. Little kids, like always, when I do these presentations with faculty and professional development things, I say, well, kids are not, little adults. They're just its own separate little entity that we have to think differently and treat differently, care for and care about. So that's kind of where we are. We are treatment focused first. So while we love to tout our academic rigor that we provide, we utilize the district curriculum with our programs. But we are first at treatment focus. So we really want to calm down their brains. And then once their brains are calmed down, or teaching them to be students again, we increase that academic rigor and they take off like little spaceships. We see them doing a great job. We're really big on staffing and allowing this to take place inside that district in a safe way. When we talk about elementary classrooms, you can see up on the board, we have two Pennsylvania certified teachers, 2 behavior coaches. The role of behavior coaches is to be actively engaged in those students all day long. So they're kind of the teacher and the behavior coach kind of run that classroom. A transition coordinator to help those kids get back out into their best setting where they need to be. So if that's like the regular ed classroom where they're normally at, that person's going to assist them in a very intentional and slow way to make sure that they're successful doing that. Then we also have the treatment focus, is that master's level therapist is in that program providing that canopy of treatment for that whole team. So oftentimes when you're in a school district, you see that slip to all academics. We don't want to always do that because these kids need a little bit more than that. So we want to really focus on it, and that's why that therapist is key there. That's the elementary staffing. Quickly, the secondary programs, so that would be middle school, high school level. As a certified teacher, a behavior coach, and a master's level therapist. Usually these programs are a little more involved with the building with the kids, so they're in there part-time, full-time, so we can staff that a little bit less. It's not as intensive because we see that those kids are naturally more able and ready to go back out into that, into the regular ed setting.
I'll talk a little bit about the educational format that happens. In the elementary school, our program would be using your curriculum, using the same curriculum that your teachers are using, your teachers' lesson plans. Because our goal is to move them out of our environment quickly back into their traditional environment they would be in their elementary school. So they're going to be in the same curriculum. At the secondary level, with the necessity of meeting the highly qualified regulation, we'd have a certified teacher that would serve as a proctor. But your online Blackboard, whatever it may be here at Exeter Township, would be what would be used. And then as the students, we would really look at being very particular in what type of courses and content the students would have. So if they're doing well in math and science, let's say, they may continue to stay in that math and science classroom with their regular education teacher, but come to us for other parts of the day. So we'll be using online curriculum at the secondary level, and your actual curriculum you're using here in Exeter Township in the elementary.
It's a lot of information. We're throwing a lot at you. So we just wanted to highlight some other locations in Berks County that we're currently utilizing with Ole Valley Elementary and Middle School. So they have a K-2 classroom, and then middle school, which is 6, 7, 8. Governor Mifflin, they're utilizing a K-2 classroom there as well. And proposed to Antietam for a high school program for next year. So we're looking here next to the woods. We mentioned our flagship Eastern New York School District. We run a K-12 for that district. We've been there for 7 years. It's kind of where we cultivated this program and really started to utilize that. And your wonderful staff behind me have have visited there, have kind of gone there a couple times, seen the ins and outs and all that, so we just like to talk about that as well. Yes, you guys are more than welcome to go as well. Some of the data and outcomes, everything's got to show what we're doing here. So what we look at currently right now throughout our last 7 years, this takes in everything from kindergarten to high school, our transition rates. So this is any kid that's been in our program and has found success going back out into that regular ed setting. This is 61%. We have a 42% rate of our students are identified as special ed students. So again, the key point of this is not just for special ed students, it's for other kids that may not be identified as well as that in that area. We took a secondary graduation rate for our kids that have been serving there at 80%. And of course, I don't have a magic wand, I wish I did. We have some kids that go out, we think they're ready, and something happens maybe in their home life, or maybe they weren't quite ready, they come back at just a 3% rate there. So we're very intentional with finding success with those students. To back on that, again, not that magic wand, but the 13%, some kids are just not ready to be in a public setting. There as well. We also are real big on collecting data. We take daily behavior data. We share that at monthly meetings with district staff, what we call gatekeepers. So there's a district staff that is identified with our programs, and they know every kid inside, outside, what's going on a daily basis. We can break that down to them. So it's very clear that, hey, we've seen this kid, we've been with them for 4 or 5 months, let's say, and we've seen zero physical aggression, we see all those good things happening. Here's why we feel he's ready to go back out. So we have the blessing of the district to see the data with that kid, so he starts going back out. Some other additional benefits, professional development. I have kind of toured, spreading the gospel per se, about trauma-informed care with school districts. All over the state, I've probably done over 100 in the last few years. It's just nonstop, so I'm certainly always, that's part of our program. If we're in your district, I'm here to help with that staffing, understanding what trauma is, what's happening with our kids coming in now. We touched a little bit about this. The therapist serves as a consultant. So it wouldn't just necessarily be the kids that are in the classroom, let's say. Let's say something happened to a student that's nowhere anywhere near on a Laurel Lake radar. That can be an immediate thing to go, hey, we have a Laurel Lake therapist, that's certified license, that's right down the hallway. They can meet with that kid. They don't have to go through insurance, any of that kind of stuff to help. It adds benefits to the district right there and then. Again, that on average across our districts, what we see in that kind of role, in those extra counseling sessions, we see an average of another 11 kids that are being served just in the school district, just on that basis across those as well. Again, we kind of love our kids a lot. So once they're in our transition room, they're kind of ours forever. So let's say they transition, they're out in the regular ed for like a year or two, and something happens to them. We're always going to be like, hey, let's go get them, let's go check on them, let's do those kinds of things. So it's not like, oh, you're done, graduate, goodbye, never see you again. So we're always that real big support with our kids. We just want to highlight a little bit of that.
Just to go back to the data piece, our pool and footprint across 7 years is in excess of 350 students served. So when you look at that data, you look at those percentages, it takes into account over 350 kids taken care of across those 7 years. We talk about enrollment capacity per classroom. In the elementary, the lowest level, the K2, we serve 8 students at any given point. As students transition out, we would put another student in that seat. We would continue to support them, as Paul has said, but our maximum capacity in the classroom at any moment is 8. As you move up into the upper elementary, the 3 through 5, or 3rd through 5th grade, it's 10. We found across our 7 years that we can handle a few more as you get a little bit older. You have a lot of elopements, you have a lot more overt behaviors that come into play in elementary. As you move into the secondary level, you see the number increases. You see 15 in both the middle school and the high school. On average, we serve 25 to 30, sometimes even more than that, in each one of those secondary models. Some students are only with us a very short time or for a very short number of periods, so that opens up seats to serve more students. Of course, when we talked about the students being placed out, you're talking about one student going to one program. Here, we're going to serve many.
Do you maintain your staff to student ratio when your student rates go up?
What the footprint that we had in staffing is the same regardless of the number of students.
Okay, so if you have 10 students, you have 2 staff. If you have 25 students, you have 2 staff.
So, yeah, so how those numbers are breaking down, so you see the number 15 in the middle of high school, that's going to be for, let's say, one specific period. And then maybe in that next period, half of those kids are being transitioned or are out for a different subject, and a different number of kids are in. So it never exceeds the number 15. If that makes sense.
As Dr. Miller had alluded to, the last slide in our presentation this evening references Eastern York School District. This number was provided last fall through their business department and a PowerPoint to their board of directors. In the previous 4 years, the K-12 programs, just in that 4-year window, saved the district in excess of $5 million. And the way they calculated that was to take the cost of transportation, the cost of tuition for each student that they had out, and multiply those numbers, and they use multiple different programs. As Dr. Miller described earlier, you can see at 60,000 how fast the number escalates. We entertain any questions you might have for us.
So how does your program then break out for students cost-wise? In elementary school versus high school versus middle school?
It depends a little bit on the number of students that are served. At the elementary level, the cost for the 2 classrooms would be $530,000. So we figured divided by 18 students, so it moves down and do the math in my head. You're going to get a calculator. There you go. Bunch of numbers fast.
A little less than 30 grand a student.
I'm sorry?
It's less than 30 grand a student.
Correct. And that's here in your building. So you're not, you're going to save the transportation costs and everything.
That's without transitioning any students either.
Right. Normally, there's a few that would transition, so you would serve more than just that 18. At the secondary level, of course, the cost is $235,000 a class. So you do the math there, they're serving many more, so your number is less. But also, you have less staff at the secondary level than you do at the elementary.
I'm assuming that the location of these programs will be in our buildings, correct?
Yes, sir.
And another question, supervision. I noticed staff, who supervises?
Yeah, we actually we're graced to have a very nice supervision structure within our organization. We have a licensed master's level clinician that is deemed our clinical supervisor for our program. So that person is able to visit all of our programs clinically, just focused on the clinical aspect. Locally, we identify a team leader within the group, and then they kind of take care of all of the day-to-day operations of running and staffing the program. Above that person, we have a regional director in the area, which has been working for us for 15 plus years. She would be involved extensively. We also have, in addition to her, another specific transition transition supervisor that visits those staff. So we try to keep it very limited in supervision. So I think it's like 8 classrooms. We try to keep it to a supervisor, so they're able to visit them at least once weekly. We also have regional behavior coaches, which go around and really mentor our behavior coaches in that program to really help them understand how to function and be the best they can.
So if there's a crisis in the classroom, let's say one of these kids really is out of control.
Sure.
And beyond the capability of your program staff to handle, what's your general protocol?
Absolutely. So that rarely happens. If that happens, we work with the school, so the principal may be involved at that point. Again, that's like our very last resort. We really contain those kinds of things. Set up to be that way, to be successful. So that would be like the worst case scenario, to be involved in crisis or the police, things like that.
And you mentioned that a portion of the students would have IEPs. The students without IEPs, do they have any other kind of written plan, like a 504 plan, something like that?
They do not. It is a regular ed classroom. Through the Department of Ed, we've gone through those those kind of channels to make sure that this is, that we're doing things on the up and up here. But they would have our own internal treatment plans, working on what got them to us, and kind of identifying what's happening with them. And sometimes, especially at the elementary level, we're avoiding that IEP that might be coming. So a kindergartner may not adjust, and the natural thing for school districts to do is to push them in that direction. And we're saying that might not be needed for this particular student.
Many times, students that are reg ed actually had a functional behavior assessment. The districts are doing that before looking at the possibility of placing the student. That would be
But there's no written, you're saying there's no written plan for a student. There's nothing in writing per se for a student that goes into the program. What kind of documentation do you maintain for a student that goes into the program? There's got to be some level of accountability for that.
Oh, are you talking about before they come with us or after?
I'm saying before, during.
Yeah, so we have a very structured, entrance criteria that we work with the school district with. So that's like I mentioned the gatekeeper earlier. They're really in charge of saying that this kid has the school district done everything that we possibly can to work with this kid before we put him into that or him or her into that moral life classroom. So that looks like other districts utilize FBA, so functional behavior assessment. They do that, and then they come back to the work. Then our gatekeepers say, do it again, and they do that again. And we'll meet with the parents, we'll meet with the child. They'll come down, we'll have a tour, we'll do all those kinds of things. Documentation like a consent to treat, all those kinds of things with us as well. And then we'll have a treatment plan with that student to develop those kinds of things as well. Does that help?
Yeah, that helps. I just wanted to get a sense of
Sure.
a paper trail.
Yeah. I know, throw a lot of stuff at you.
Yeah, because what happens is, let's say ultimately a student does become evaluated, becomes eligible for special education.
Yep.
Someone might claim, what kind of interventions did you actually attempt prior to?
Yes, absolutely.
And isn't there some liability for the district if they fail to provide at the appropriate time for a student that they should have? So I just kind of worry about things like the process and some of the legal liabilities associated with,
Yes, to give you an even more in-depth picture answer, a little bit more, our behavior coaches are trained to kind of monitor that student's behavior literally at a minute-to-minute basis. So they're tracking that data all day long. So we have data going, to student all year long about what's happening per, could be down to 5 minutes.
And that data then becomes part of the student's education record.
Sure.
Correct. And owned by the school district.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Shared by the school district.
Yep.
You had mentioned that 42% of the students are special ed or have IEP. Was that primarily like emotional support, identified students or learning supports? And then I was wondering about the special ed certified teachers that you have in class.
Okay, yeah, so it kind of ranges. We have a couple, gifted IEPs in our classroom. We have it runs the gamut across our, nearly 400 students that we've done. So yeah, it does identify some emotional support, learning support, those kinds of things we're there to assist with that. Yeah.
In reference to the certification teacher, it would be a regular education certified teacher. The students would stay on your special ed certified staff members' caseload, and we would contribute to the IEP or any type of tracking or any information, progress monitoring. But the delivery of some of those services, let's say the education or OT or something, that obviously would still be provided, but not by us. It would be provided to your IEP.
Can you say, how is the student referred to the program and what is the criteria?
Sure, absolutely. So we work very closely with the district staff to identify what kids would be appropriate for our program. And it's really, like starting it, we really don't care. Like whatever student that you guys need, that you've gone through and talked with parents, got parental approval, it's a voluntary program. To move kids back from the district to utilize our classroom within there. So the criteria really varies depending on, what the district itself wants to do. We're not really like, this is our, I don't have a yes or no. We're going to work with you to make sure that happens. So some criteria that you'll see as a kid, maybe a student's having some behavioral issues. That's the best way I can say this. Behavioral issues that are affecting those academics of that student. maybe they're missing a lot of school, and a lot of truancy kids that we deal with too, because that aren't coming to school, we can help them with that. Students that are disruptive in the classroom, the regular ed setting, things, all those kinds of things to make sure that they're addressed.
One thing that surprises a lot of districts is that we take overt behavior students, ones that have an acting out, maybe they're throwing desks, maybe they're in fights. We take them in. There are also mixed with students that have had some type of trauma. Perhaps there's been a parent that has died suddenly of an illness, or there's been a divorce, or there's been some type of abuse that has happened. And our results in integrating and providing the treatment services and approaches that we have had the same results with this population's mixed. Most providers are specializing in one or the other. Our modality serves both.
I just had a quick question for you guys, and maybe Sue, you can touch on this as well. What kind of interaction will you have with the school administration or the school counselors? I heard you reference a couple of times interacting with caseload managers or with the IEP coordinators, but what kind of interaction do you have with those other parties?
Sure. So what I really like to talk about these programs are we really become part of your family, which is really neat to see. We have a lot of our staff end up coaching for the school district, doing a lot of neat things with the district that they're in. So it's really cool to see that, like, we have one that does the drama club, like she runs the whole theater system in the school now. So they do a lot of things. We have our master's level clinicians running FBA teams for whole buildings in some districts. So there's a lot of different ways that we can interact. Our therapists become best friends with the counselors in the programs because they're working on scheduling and doing all those things with your school district. What I hear a lot from principals in buildings that we're at, they give me that I don't have to deal with mental health all day long.
Yeah.
So you're talking about me personally?
So like a lot of times we go back to they have to be a principal again, right? And they can maintain that relationship with that student without being the heavy hand all the time that they have to be. Does that make sense?
Do you look for the interaction with the building principal? Because I've heard of cases where the building principals or maybe the district says, this is your zone, this is our zone, unless there's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on what that principal wants to do. We really want to handle everything. We're not going to be calling the principal and saying, oh my gosh, we don't know what to do. Right? That's not going to happen. We really want them involved, but we want them involved in a healthier way. So we want them to come up and do a project with our kids. Okay. That kind of relationship building versus, oh, you have bad today, go to the principal's office. We want to change that dynamic for these things. Okay. So that's kind of all we know. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Sure. Just another follow-up question. You mentioned 2 elementary classrooms. You've got 4 elementary schools.
Sure.
How does that work?
Absolutely, good question. So it works by, we have our vans. So what happens is the kid's ready to transition back to his home school, which is what we want to do, that least restricted environment where that student belongs. So we have that transition coordinator role, and that person's going to be essentially the bus driver. And is going to take that kid to those elementary buildings for that. So let's say the kid, little Jimmy is awesome at math, and we're going to put him back in the strongest academic subject first, because he's going to know everything at that. So we're going to put him in that van when it's math time and drive him to that building. And if he's successful, he's going to be successful there. The transition coordinator can be there with them. They can excuse himself, all of those kinds of things, and then return him back to the transition program. And as he grows, we add more classes to him, and then eventually he's just going to be going to that building full time.
And you know, our elementary program is K-6, so are you putting first graders with 6th graders, or do you have segregated?
Absolutely, good question. So 2 separate classrooms. So the first one's for the little ones, K-2, and the older one, we have 3 to 5 that would be like 3 to 6 or 8. Whatever best mixes with that separate. Yeah, there won't be a kindergarten with a 6th grade.
At the cost of $520,000 a year, Susan, why don't we do this just ourselves?
Staffing that, good question. The staffing that Laurel Life is providing, the expertise in mental health, which is what they do every day, is not the component that we are running here. For us to open these 4 classrooms, add all this kind of staffing is just not something the district seemed to have been interested in absorbing. Plus, we would have to hire, we're talking about master's level counselors at each level. The amount of staff that we would have to add to the district would be quite extensive. And I just don't see that the district has been looking for that. I think this program brings toward us a partner who has really built a program for mental health needs for students. We can learn from them, build from them. You are right, though, they do jeopardize themselves, because if we find out that this is something that we can finally staff ourselves, we can build it ourselves for sure. But I would never try to assume that I have the expertise that our mental health colleagues have to be able to bring and supervise and have this kind of program. This is very similar to, there's residential programs our children go to who have very high needs in mental health. After a residential program, they go to a partial program, usually at the mental health facility. They're there for the day and they come home, and then they either go to school-based or they come back to school. From what we're noticing and observed, these levels, residential, partial, this is kind of like that step-down school-based partial, but we're now going to have it in our buildings with the type of professionals that can actually handle this. So that is why we're not working at building this now.
Now, if on day one, if we engage this gentleman and a group, do you envision that day one we have those classrooms already filled with the students ready to go? Or do you think we only have half of those students right now? Or
I might let our
do you
two
envision-
supervisors answer that, because they have been working very hard with our parents and our families, our kids that are out, to bring them back. We can't say to our families, this is indefinite until the board approves it, because we can't tell them there's a program going to be here and it cannot be here.
One meant on the sense that do we have enough children?
Oh, yeah.
I'm just trying to clarify.
So we could speak a little bit about, we
Yes.
do have enough children that satisfy the requirements for the classroom. We also have children that we are identifying that are real risks and potentials for going out of district, increasing their cost. And those are seats that we have not yet budgeted for the next year. So at the elementary level, I'm looking at 4 to 6 kids right now that are kind of really having a challenging time within our school setting, and trying to meet their needs for the remainder of the school year and making a determination with the team. These students that I'm specifically talking about would fit very well into this type of program. I don't know who you have or level.
Yeah, we're looking at, there's a potential to bring back 8 to 9 students from out-of-district placements at the secondary level for next year. And then we have anywhere from 5 to 10 that are close at this point to meeting out-of-district placements for next year that could fit into the classroom as well.
Thank you.
If we offer this, and we have outside placements, must they come back because we're offering it in-house, or is it still a choice?
It's still a choice. We cannot mandate, once we have a special education, NORA sign, those like recommended education placement, parent signs that, we cannot mandate that they come back. But we must say that as Jillian and we have talked to many of the parents, as you might know, parents want their kids back there in the system. But to be quite honest and transparent, we have about 3 or 4 students who are in extremely high mental health needs that we would never recommend. This program isn't a one-size-fits-all for mental health.
Right.
There are still some students that have such high mental health needs that they definitely need programming with psychiatrists and psychologists and that type of programming. As their slide even showed, sometimes the children might transition to this program and they would find that the need is higher and there might be a recommendation for out of district. So it's, again, there will be still out of district students with mental health needs, that's a promise. But the majority of students we could serve in this program, and what I really like about it is regular ed and special ed. It's very much a response intervention. As we start seeing students who are struggling, we don't have to wait 60 days for an evaluation and 30 days for an IEP meeting to get them services. They could be walked right in. And I know they mentioned a little bit the support they will bring to the building. I find to be such a highlight is that the principal or teacher goes to the team here and says, hey, I have a problem with a student in my classroom. They can slide right over to the classroom and see what's going on. They may be able to give interventions to the teacher right there, behavioral strategies to try to keep the student there. And also PDs in-house. They can see what's going on in a specific building. You know, maybe with the principal and grade level teacher, second grade really needs a training in this. And they can really
program and design trainings for the teachers that are very customized based on the team. Because they do become, and I like your question because you are right. Sometimes these programs, like, these are your kids and they're not our kids. That's not the way the program works. They become part of the school district, they become part of that school, they become an integral part of the team members there, and they do provide a great deal of training as well as the support for the students, and they mesh very closely with the principal and the guidance counselor.
And this program also offers a chance for us to provide the least restrictive environment, which is an obligation that we have to our students.
But so you mentioned, that's special education. I mean, when they have an IEP,
Yes.
and you do have a little bit more of a difficult process in terms of going through a change in placement. What about a regular education assignment, like an alternative education assignment? And Allison's question, can we assume they'll be coming?
Our regular education students, the only time a regular, and Jillian, you can correct me.
So this would not replace AEDY for those students that are going out on drug, weapon violations, like your expulsion pieces. That would not cover that. But students who could have qualified for AEDY previously because of behavioral concerns could go to that fashion, to this classroom, instead of looking at those AEDY pieces, which those regulations have kind of been changing in the past year or so, so this would be that alternative for them.
Yeah, so those kids are out on AEDY, they should be coming back to this program. As long as it's not a, like you said,
yes,
it's a fence.
yes, that would be the plan, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To go back to the question that was raised about cost, we have a contract year to year with you. So whether you sign up, you want one classroom or you want K-12 and have 4, it's year to year. You're not locked in beyond that. Our interest is just to collaborate with you. We go year to year. We understand that financial constraints sometimes come into play, but we're putting our money where our mouth is, so to speak. Simply saying that we're going to deliver the service. If we don't, we realize that we lose out. But after 7 years of providing the model with the class, or with the results that we've had, we know and we stand behind what we're offering to you.
Just one more question. We have posted a behavioral specialist right now for a job posting. Would we no longer need that because we would have this?
So at my level, I'm at the elementary level. We have behaviors, I've seen a significant increase in behaviors at the elementary level that we are deploying behavioral specialists to do FBAs. And so this would take some of that it would relieve them of a lot of their duties so that they can target one of the autism initiative and some of the other things, and hopefully over time reduce costs. So that's really the goal.
It would be the same at the secondary level too.
So, gentlemen, when you you just mentioned that it's a year to year. Okay, so I ascribe no evil knowledge. I want you to understand what I'm saying. In your assessment of the previous year, do you traditionally find that number was a little low and we got to jack it up? Because I mean, the thing that's going through my head is that even if that does happen, yeah, we have the ability to go like this, right? And we wash away. So, but as we all know, there's nothing so permanent as a temporary government program. So, once you're here, are we going to see large hikes?
In cost, in what we're charging. Normally, our cost is 2 or 3%. I don't think, I've been with the company for 27 years. I've been CEO for the last 6. Since I've been CEO, several years we've held our rates flat, which is almost unheard of in today's economy.
I just have a couple of more sort of business-related questions. Are you privately held?
We are a private nonprofit.
Okay. So you're a 501c3?
We're a 501c3, yes, sir.
You're 50990?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So who and how does Affinity Rolling Hills and Mill Road fit into the water line?
Sure. Excellent question. Inside the envelope that you have at your seat, the first thing you'll find in there is a little bit of introduction to our company. If you think of Procter & Gamble, we're all used to going and buying Prilosec, Pepto-Bismol, and a Tide and Gain. We moved to that type of a model a number of years back. So Folium is our corporate name, the umbrella. Under that, you have 4 divisions. You have Laurel Life, which is talking about. That does encompass psychiatric outpatient offices and counseling offices and services in some counties. Rolling Hills Transit is our transportation entity. We provide that service in a number of counties and school districts as an extra add-on, just a contracted service. Affinity is our educational solutions. You do have that actually right here in this building. We have an alternative ed disruptive youth program that we provide. There are several districts in the county that send students here. This model, for all intents and purposes, is the way a lot of districts are going, and it's becoming replaced because it can serve far more students for the price. And then the final thing was No Road Adventures. We have a leadership and team building development course. We have a lot of industry and businesses and schools and sports teams that bring folks to our corporate office, which is in Franklin County, for the type of service. So there are 4 divisions under which Foley provides service.
What's your doctorate in?
Actually, I do not have a doctorate. I have a master's degree in counseling. I, at one point, was a licensed professional counselor that is in inactive status at the moment.
And sorry, your background?
Master's degree as well in psychology.
And what's the turnover within your company relative to staffing at the school level?
Absolutely. So we're at about an 8% retainment rate with our transition classrooms. We like to really, we look at compensating our staff well, that with us, providing that real, sense of fulfillment with us is kind of one of our focuses, is trying to work care organization, take care of our people. So, like I said, we're pretty good with that turnover rate.
Probably the greatest frequency in turnovers with our certified teachers. With the schools, just to realize how great our teachers are, the training they have, and they coach.
So then what's your average length of tenure for your staff?
Of tenure?
Length of tenure.
If I was looking at the whole footprint of the company, probably in excess of 8 years at the moment.
And do you, well, I guess on your 990, you would publish you report your annual revenues?
Yes. So last year, annual revenue was, I believe, just over 15 million, and it encompasses all of our services.
And are you seeing year-over-year growth?
Yes. The year before, we had just less 13 million. At the moment, I would anticipate across all of our services, we'll probably grow at least 2 million, maybe 3 or 4, depending on what happens.
And have you ever lost an account?
Lost an account? At the present time, in the past, yes. I would say in this particular model that we're discussing, we have had a few districts that have elected because of financial constraints that they had to choose to discontinue the program.
So it was based on their inability to perform financially, not your inability.
Correct.
Who's your competition?
Who's our competition? In this model, I would tell you that probably there are districts that decide they could maybe try and do it themselves, but then you're married to the staff. You can't walk away. So sometimes districts have been our competition. The only other entity that does something similar, I would say, is a partial hospitalization, but they're going to have a specific clientele versus a wide specific. I don't really think that there is one beyond that.
And so in all the contracts that you have with the districts that are listed here, they were not requests for proposals, they were just contracts given to you guys.
Request for proposals as far as they put it out? Yeah, an RFP. I don't believe any of them were RFPs. They heard through either Patan conferences where we co-presented, they've heard from superintendents meetings across counties, people move from one district to the next. We've really not put a big push on to publicize. It's been word of mouth that has allowed our growth to happen.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Any other questions? Thank you again very much for your time this evening. Hopefully we haven't flooded you with too much information. Look forward to hearing from you soon.
All right, at this time, Sam Guidish will present budget review.
Can you hear me? Pardon my voice. Got a cold from others. So May 20th, next Monday, the school board is required to adopt a proposed final budget. And that's according to the state's PDE's timeline for the budget process. But we also take a look at this juncture of the food service budget and the capital budget. So I'm going to start off by looking at the food service budget. We still have a few outstanding items. Maybe the biggest one is meal price, which will probably be looked at a lot closer for the month of June when the board actually adopts the meal prices. But in any event, Mrs. Walensky and Elena Pansner have gone through the food service budget. They estimated what this year will end up at, a small loss. Estimated a small gain. Last year, we did have a loss of almost $73,000. Mrs. Walensky and her staff made a lot of changes in staffing, number of hours, trying to bring down that deficit. Next year, at this point, for any price increase, a small gain. Some of the areas that we've been experiencing increases are in repairs. The equipment is aging and it has to be maintained. We've made some assumptions about his salary due to a retirement. We are negotiating a contract right now, so some of these numbers may change before it is adopted in June. We do not have any numbers yet for state and federal reimbursement rates. So at this point, I believe the food service operation is turning the corner, and that's definitely a very good sign. And again, Mrs. Walensky provided some assumptions she used. She's getting her bid pricing in for food and other related supplies. Again, repair costs, they've been significant, but they've managed to keep it within the budget. And again, this does not reflect the meal price. A tool called the paid lunch equity tool will be completed by the end of May, and that pretty much dictates what you have to target for the full paid price. Last year, the district, or for the current year, increased 10 for breakfast, 10 cents at the elementary, and 5 cents at the secondary, and lunch was actually 15 cents at elementary, 5 cents at secondary. So I think at this point, Mrs. Walensky's probably targeting more, kind of control that, maybe around 5 cents. If you can hurt participation if you increase it too much. Looking at the capital projects, and this is money outside of the general fund. We had started, this year, about $9 million. We did several different projects, or we finished some projects in this fiscal year. So we used about $3 million of capital project funds. Next year, at this point, we're looking at a senior high school roof restoration, as well as multi-facility projects, which is mainly the junior high chiller and some minor gutter work at Brighton. So the balance, is coming down. We are using those funds for the improvements that are needed. I do want to point out at this time that today we had an auction And this relates to the new money, which we'll be getting in about $3.5 million. We refunded the 2014 bonds and also had the issue of the new money, and the results were very favorable. The overall savings were originally projected at $465,000. They came in at over $800,000. I will provide you with the detail as I go through and get my questions answered by PFM. But overall, the results were very good. So the yield is 1.7%. We'll be very careful about arbitrage. You cannot earn more money on interest earnings on that 3.5 million than what you're paying. So, but we will spend it quickly. We've seen the capital budget, and it will be needed, especially with the upcoming projects at Jacksonville and Lorraine for the unit ventilators. So good news. And we did maintain our AA rating, which helped the cause as well.
And is there a timeline in which that money has to be spent?
3 years.
And one more question, if I can. Concerning food service budgets, change in net assets down at the bottom excludes net pension liability. Why is that?
For accounting purposes, because it's a proprietary fund, any of the GASB statements related to the pension and recognizing the liability has to be recorded at this level. Whereas in the general fund, we prepare entity-wide statements. It's not at the fund level. So putting it in here, it's just, if you look at the statements, it has a negative $2 million. So it's
Negative $2 million, you stuttered. Why did you stutter?
I don't remember the exact number. It's an accounting entry, is what it is. I mean, it's the liability, but because it's a proprietary or considered, well, I'll just say proprietary, you make the actual entry to the books. Whereas in the general fund, it's more at a higher level statement, financial statement level. At this point in the year, we look at, we're kind of trying to wrap up the budget, but we have another month to go. But you also have to look at what are your long-range implications. And I reviewed all of this past Thursday, so I'm going to breeze through some slides because a lot of you were able to look at it. But if anybody wants explanations about certain things, I'll be happy to provide that throughout the week or even next week. But like I said, next Tuesday, we'll have to adopt the proposed final budget, put it on display. Things will change between now and June. The proposed final budget has to show, if we're looking at tax increases, that potential, it really should show that. And but it doesn't mean you're going to increase at that level. So we'll discuss that as we go through these slides. This year, deficit of $937,000 at this point in time. Again, revenue was better this year than originally budgeted. Expenses were lower than budgeted by $570,000, and I've been through a lot of the explanations on this. Next year, what we looked at last week were the different scenarios of no tax increase, the 4.5 million deficit, raising to the index. The F1 provides us with a limit on what we can increase. This year is 3%, but if you qualify for an exception, you can raise your taxes more. So we looked at a 3.5%, taking about a third of the special ed exception, and then the full special ed exception of almost $700,000. So those are the different scenarios. Bottom line is we're going to have a deficit. We'll be using fund balance, and we're fortunate to have fund balance to use. And these are just the different components of assignments, fund balance. The total fund balance is this line right here. So if we're ending this year about 18.8, and we're going to use 4.5, well, that's the number. And that's how the math works there. And this number gets componentized into an unassigned, and that should be under 8% when you adopt your budget. So this scenario right now, with a 3.5% increase, is within that guideline. The assignments are future use of fund balance. Commitments are board resolution use of fund balance for PSERS, capital, and assessment appeals. Major change I mentioned last week, we got awarded the grant. I add the revenue to the budget, up to $94,000. This is just a detail, highlighting those items. Property tax reduction, we got 1,000 more for next year. So over the next 2 weeks, I'll be calculating the homestead farmstead reduction that those who qualify will get. Expenses, as I mentioned, we removed the priority 2 staff request, $289,000. And we had to add in some Act 44 related grant requests. We did not have those in the budget. And I made some changes to special education costs for extended school year. I'm still getting them in. So as part of my June report, I will definitely be updating some numbers because they're coming in almost daily as the contracts come in. OTPT, we were trending down this year, so I adjusted those numbers down for next year. And again, we're adjusting, polishing pricing up for our Chromebooks and all our textbooks and licenses, so that's why those adjustments were made. The budget right now is $80 million, almost $80,100,000. It's a $3.9 million increase from this current year's estimate. And as you can see, the majority of that is in wages and benefits. So what remains in terms of staffing? We did reduce our staffing request by $900,000. 630 will remain. Now I do have to make this adjustment based on the action taken this evening. But the others that remain, mental health, student services liaison, which is part of the grant. And the revenues on the revenue side, 2 learning support teachers, district behavioral specialists, and 2 special education agents full-time. And again, we've reviewed all the new impact items, resources that we need in terms of curriculum, as well as adding Chromebooks, build a full complement for 4th grade, in addition to other equipment that has been requested. A lot of this is one time. Close to $1 million of it is one time, although the licenses will have to be renewed in 6 years. So back to the bottom line. And again, this is just a more compressed look at fund balance. But so basically, what do these tax increases provide for? As I mentioned earlier, the bottom line is we are going to use fund balance. And this is this number right here. And I rounded, so it's kind of easier to look at. So if you look at these numbers, that relates to what's in the very bottom line on this next slide. So really what I tried to do, trying to make people understand what a tax increase will cover. So why don't we just look at what additional revenue and what additional tax revenue will generate. So with the tax increase, our revenue is going up $346,000. at 3%, 3.5%, 4.52. This is what revenue will have. So what does that get you? Well, if we look at what our current staff wage and benefit increases are, already taking into account the retirements, the 2 positions we aren't replacing, well, we're not going to cover, we're not even, another tax increase, that doesn't help. At 3%, you almost cover what you're currently obligated to pay. At 3.5%, you are essentially covering it. At 4.5%, okay, now you have additional funds to take care of those priority 1 that we still have in the budget. So, the importance of this is to understand, we have these obligations, and I will point out that, in May, late in May, we will get the healthcare benefit number, and this number may go down a bit, but we're in a position where we will need to use fund balance in order to meet our obligations that are ongoing. I mean, these numbers are ongoing. Are there any questions about that? Village history, our increases range anywhere from 0 to the highest was 3.5% back in 10-11. Village impact, different scenarios, 3.5% on a home, average around $108,000. It's $124 per year. To give you an idea. And Mrs. Wilson had asked me a few weeks ago about how many properties are in that range. Well, those that are 108, excuse me, or less, 108 or less, are 6,000 properties. So, about 3,700, paying more than that, $125 per year. There was a 3.5% tax increase. And this table illustrates the value of a mill. People say your millage is very high. 32.614 is high, but the value of our mill, one mill is 1.376 million, whereas compared to the value of one mill for Wilson is 2.5. So they have a bigger base. So they generate a lot more money from that. And that's very important to keep in mind. So the outstanding items. I mentioned the bond sale. I'll reflect those numbers in the June numbers. And again, we're receiving additional pricing on different items. Healthcare premium, I mentioned that. All right, I'm going to really go to the most important slides. You have to look at a 5-year projection in order to understand what could happen to your fund balance if you really don't understand the increases that you are incurring. And I've made some assumptions here about the Act-1 index and just living within the Act-1 index for the next 5 years. And having very small increases in assessed valuation of only $3 million, if we're lucky to get that. So, and these are the numbers. This is what the Act-1 index would generate in the out years. This is this current year, and that includes that special ed exception. That's the max, the 34.10. But it's between 1.4 and 2 million. And what you'll see in a little bit is how much wages might cost over that period. And these are just assumptions about other sources of revenue. And really, with the Act 1 index, you are limited. I don't anticipate at this point that state is really going to make any great leaps, as well as federal. So we're looking at increases 2.3 to 3.3% in revenue. Expenses, you have to make some assumptions about salary, but you also have to make assumptions about staffing. What is going to happen to your staff? There's attrition, there's retirements, and there could be reduction in staffing. And obviously, that impacts your effective rate of increases. That's why you see smaller, 1.9%. So this is probably the most important slide for you to understand when looking at a long-range projection. Is that having effective increases of 1.6 to 2.6 in wages, but benefits going higher because of healthcare and retirement. So you have totals, and here's the net change. This is this line here. 2.4 million, 1.5, 1.9. And when you compare it to the Act 1 index, the Act 1 index can barely keep up with the increase in your wages and benefits. What this line represents is I made some assumptions about staffing reduction in the years out based upon our ratio of students to teacher. And that would be a reflected reduction of about $1.6 million. Those. And the point here, all other expenses besides wages and benefits. Very little change in this 5-year projection. We've really held the line as much as we can in those areas. Obviously, we are challenged with tuition for out-of-district placements, but other things we have held the line. We do consortium buying, we buy our utilities, so we do those things to make room for all the mandates which are underfunded. So if you look at that, there's very little change in this model, with other items. So again, wages and benefits. Let me just skip to 3.5%. If we increase taxes 3.5% for 1920, we're still going to have a deficit to deal with. But assuming that we'll increase the index in the out years, we are still going to be experiencing deficits. And we will bring down the 18.8 fund balance to 11.5 million. Because that Act 1 index is going to have a hard time helping us to support. That's even with the staff reduction. Another scenario, if you don't do any staff reductions, we'll be down to 6.7 million by 23-24. And if we did not increase tax, so these are just scenarios that really show you if you don't plan for the future and have some increase in your tax rate, especially if you aren't getting funded from the state and that you're not in the position to really cut a lot of program or have a desire to do that. I think we've been very frugal in what we've done in this district. This is enrollment projections. So enrollments are declining. This is based on data from a 5-site, we call it Forecast 5. And I've used this information to illustrate how our student to staff ratio has been declining and is continuing to decline. And this is something that we really need to take a look at. And the numbers that are important here that I used in the analysis was we should reduce staff by 4, 2, 3, and 2 in the years after 1920. And I made the assumption that 14.69 is a good student-teacher ratio, and that's just regular ed teachers. This does not include special education. But the question is, what is the ideal ratio? Back in 11-12, we had a ratio of 15.69. Now, things change, schedules change, offerings change. So based on that 14.69, we keep it level, then we should be making some reductions going forward. And this graph really depicts, different levels. 7-8 has the lowest student to staff ratio, and this is K4. Here's secondary in the green, and 5-6 is in the orange. So there's things that we need to look at as an administration to identify going forward what we would do in terms of staffing ratios and trying to control the wage and benefit portion of the budget. So back to the bottom line here is that the budget that I'll put on the state's form, if it's okay with the board, to reflect this budget, because it will be in the 8% guideline. That's for your unassigned fund balance, can't be more than 8% of your expenditures. But it also represents a need to increase taxes. Are there any questions?
Yeah. So Ann, we've been sitting here for a few months, 3-4 months anyway, and every month when you give us this projection, you keep saying there's not a lot we can do. It's staffing, it's benefits. Okay. So with that in mind, and looking at the numbers that you put together for 5-year projections, et cetera, I had an opportunity to talk to Mr. DePina over this weekend. And I said to him, the budget is really looking, like we're getting to a crisis level. And he said something to me along the lines of, when did you start soft pedaling things? What do you mean getting to? So, like the thing that I have to ask is, are we done looking for cuts for this year? I mean, because going to the taxpayers with a tax hike is less than palatable, especially the day after next Monday is election day, okay? They're gonna rip our heads off. So I'm asking you, are there more cuts we can look to over the next month? I get we're in the 11th hour. Are there more cuts? Can we look to, outsource food? Can we, or food service? Can we look to, for the last 3 or 4 months, you've been saying it's people, it's salaries and benefits. Are we looking at getting rid of some salaries and benefits?
Oh, we have. Like I said, there's 2 positions we're not filling, and they're professional staff. The benefits, the health care, hopefully that rate will go down. I cannot personally, as a business manager or director of finance, recommend. I mean, the schedules are the schedules. The elementary, the class sizes are where they should be, and they're based on, they relate to what's in the policy. As far as secondary, I can't make that recommendation. They're putting their schedules together right now for next year. I don't know if there's any room in there, but based on the fact that they've been asking from the new staff requests, ask for a Spanish teacher, ask for math learning support, I can't believe there's a lot of, there's any room in there. I mean, to me, from what I've been told, everyone really is, stretched to the max. But then again, going back to my 5-year projection here, if going to the future, that was my whole point, last month. If you're asking for cuts, we have to look at that staffing, especially at the secondary level. Because as those numbers are going down, we really have to look at what we're offering and how much we're offering. Because we cannot have classes of 10 or classes of just 15 or just, we really have to look at that.
I think what Ms. Garish is saying is we offer a lot of choice.
And as a district, we need to make some hard choices, no pun intended. Do we want to continue to offer those choices?
Okay, so now I'm not necessarily just talking about teachers. I'm not telling you what you should do. I'm not telling you the way you should go. But I think that every option should be on the table. Does anybody join me in that thought?
Well, Jerry, I would say that I think that it's a continual process. I don't think you can pull anyone at fault for where we are right now.
I'm not.
But I would say that I don't think you start out a statement, I'm just saying frankly, when you start out a statement of election is Tuesday, the day after when we go through this, I think that's kind of like saying we're going to control ourselves without getting any intestinal fortitude behind our decisions. What I would say is that I think that there are programs probably, or maybe there's some other activities that we could be starting to look at that frankly maybe we can't maintain them, or maybe we can't maintain them at the current level of what we're doing right now. That could potentially save money, but I don't think it's going to save us millions of dollars, unfortunately, unless you take drastic cuts. And what do those drastic cuts do? Those drastic cuts look at programs where you start using your online programs for education. When you get above a certain level, what does that do? It potentially degrades the education that we're providing and what we've been trying to do over the years. So I think we've been past the tipping point. Now we're at the point of saying, how do we maintain a system that allows every new student that walks in the door to get what every student that's walking out the door out of the past?
Okay, just to clarify, I wasn't looking so self-servingly at election. What I meant was, we're going to be standing out there on election day, and they're going to be coming at us USOB. You know what I mean? And it's like, I can't go to them and say, yeah, I supported that. There's no way. There's got to be more that can be done.
But you might turn that around and say you have 4,000 students, plus minus, and you therefore have, we'll say, 2,000 families that you're working with there. So it means you're basically dealing with 8,000 people inside of our community. And how many people? They're probably not having a problem with the fact of providing a quality education at a certain level they want to maintain. So you have these two forces that are working against each other and their priorities. You might even have three forces and there are four forces. But the whole problem is, I frankly don't, once you get to 40, what keeps you from 50 mils, which keeps you from 70 mils?
Precisely.
And you do pointing out many times, which is true, the attractiveness of the township and wanting to bring in businesses. I never say homeowners, but frankly, every house that goes up for sale eventually gets sold in this community because the school district is good. But once we start entering the school district, as Mike has pointed out, we will start looking at the marketability of our homes and the value of our homes starting to decrease.
I do want to point out that even though, the action on the personalized learning coordinator, that would be taken out of the budget, but we also taken out, when that was put in, the cost of the Brady White Virtual Academy, the option for secondary, that tuition piece. So now that will have to go back in. And am I correct, Dr. Winters?
No, it wouldn't, no.
BBA is still out of the picture.
At the high school level, we won't need BBA.
Never mind.
I share a lot of what Jerry said, and I think I share a lot of what Jim said as well. And I think this is a really difficult situation, but we can't afford to have deficits that we can't even raise taxes to cover. And I don't think you can get anywhere, and I think that's what you were saying, Jim and Jerry, I think you would agree. And I think we need to start having a sustained effort. And Ann has touched on this as well, and I appreciate your thoughts, Ann, on this. We need to have a sustained effort to get that under control and arrest that. And I think, not only does that look at staff reductions, but I think we really need to start looking at how to arrest our healthcare increased costs. Because we are bearing a tremendous burden with that, and it's not going to change, I don't think, either. So I think in the long term, that's something we need to look at as well.
we had business functions, I guess it was last week, and we had some of these conversations, Jerry, as you recall, trying to think through, what's the best plan, how do you go about this? It is the 11th hour. We are at that point where we've, I think, done the best job I think we can do at this point, trying to scrutinize every aspect of the budget. I know you sat in on a lot of budget meetings with budget managers and tried to look for every possible penny that could be shaved off. And I know Dr. Phillips, and his administrative team did, I think, a commendable job of trying to find areas that were really, where they could cut back without making too deep a cut into some of the program operations. But I think that's one aspect of budget, let's say, analysis and budget preparation. The other is, what we're sort of alluding to here is more of a philosophy going forward, and it's all the time. And it's how we conduct business every single day, and it's how our administrators examine their programs, and our budget managers look how they're spending dollars and trying to find, like I think Dr. Miller has, I think, trying to find solutions for areas where we see the most obvious aspects of where we're losing dollars. Understanding these out-of-district placements and these complex mental health situations require very expensive, programs that we could do probably much more affordably if we had services on site here. Very similarly, I look at this cyber cost, $950,000, almost $1 million a year goes right out of our pocket to support cyber costs that are padded significantly based upon numbers that are just not practical for the operation of an actual cyber program. We're getting citizens throughout Pennsylvania are really getting the short end of the stick because these cyber programs that are an option currently right now draw way too many dollars out of the school district budget. So finding solutions to develop our own program, as we had tried to do, I think, developing our own cyber program and virtual programs, was a really good way of trying to be proactive in cutting down those costs. We can save $950,000 a year. That's a significant share. But that's all. I think that's all part of just looking at this situation on a moment-to-moment basis throughout the year. And I'm not sure, to answer your point more specifically, how much further we're going to be able to cut into the existing numbers that we have right here beyond what we've already done, at least at this point. Going forward, we're looking at 5-year. I think I'm hopeful that with the reductions in our student population, reductions in staff, and creative ideas that come up as a result of some of the intervening factors that we've tried to introduce, I think maybe we can get somewhere over time. I also think it's important for us to put some pressure on our legislators. We spend 77% of all, we cover 77% of our budget through local funds.
Is it that high now?
They were up to 77%. At one time, it was considered to be a shared responsibility. The state and the local tax base were sharing, the expenses associated with operating public schools. Where are we now? We went from 50% to 77%, which is just terrible. And Pennsylvania ranks 46th in the country in terms of the state share for funding public education. So we need to have a system in Pennsylvania where we start to find a legislature that is prepared to raise revenue to be able to offset some of these property taxes that I agree are becoming problematic for our people in our community. But I think that's part of the solution too, is we have to convince the legislature that we can't do it all ourselves. This is becoming burdensome to run public education exclusively through the use of global funding. My perspective.
It's a great motivator. Vote them out.
Well, and that's true. And I think the pressure that we need to put through advocacy and letting them know how we feel about it. I've been to Harrisburg. I've spoken with our legislators. I've told them how I feel about this. And I'm trying to convince them that this is, you're putting the pressure on school districts to raise taxes. What have you done to generate revenue at the state level? I don't think it's happening. There's things like severance tax on shale gas that hasn't even been considered. Why? Because the shale industry is way too strong to be, and their influence, their lobbying influence is way too strong to be able to offset the logical practicality of tax show this. So, I mean, I think there are ways to get to this. I think our hands in some respects are somewhat tied, but I applaud our efforts to do everything we can to try to scale back what we can with what we can do. I think we've done that.
Sorry.
Well, and you had mentioned about the brand new virtual academy students that might have to go back in the budget, but then Dr. Winters just said, no, what is the plan for those students that go there? And I believe it was something like, was it like 100 students that we have in cyber and charter schools that we were probably going to be able to bring a number of them back and have them be part of our virtual program?
With ED and the cyber charter outside, but I'll let Dr. Winters
To answer your question, Dr. McClendon, in terms of programmatically and what we plan to do, I don't see that changing. I just need to figure out a way in terms of how we can, have the necessary administrative support for virtual programs within the existing administrative team, given the decision tonight with the position. But as far as the plans moving forward to have a virtual academy in-house to use, senior high teachers to shift away from Brandywine Virtual Academy and purchase a, third-party vendor to develop Schoology courses. My plans are not to change any of that. I still believe strongly that that's the right way to go, and have confidence in the team of senior high teachers that have been working and planning, with me to move in that direction. I'll just get more creative.
So do you see you're being able to have the, full program that you had intended to have without having a supervisor person on it? I'm working right now.
That's my plan.
Okay, so I'm working right now with Reading Virtual School Coordinator. I'm working there, school counselor part-time, and I see on daily basis, not daily basis, I'm not there part-time, but I just see the amount of work that goes into being able to run a program. So you can.
There are programs out there that utilize existing administrators. We looked at those. We felt the program we put together recommended it was a much better program to bring the program forward and grow it the way we wanted to grow it. But we can certainly scale it back and do it the way we still plan to do it with existing administration.
So will we scale it back?
Well, when I say scale back is,
Students or-
no, when I scale back is we will not have an administrator to be in charge of it, we'll use existing administration.
And my experiences previously, when we started a virtual academy in Elanco, I was an assistant principal at a middle school. They gave me the responsibilities because somebody said to me, middle school numbers are small, you need to justify your job, so we'll give you virtual. Virtual was small, and then to Mrs. Wilson's point earlier in the evening, once we got to a place where we were large enough, where numbers were such, then at that point in time, we said, okay, we need somebody that can more intentionally, focus on that, and that's what we did. So, we can certainly move in that, same direction here. We'll get the program started. If it grows the way I anticipate it will, and we're starting next year with just high school, but, when we get to K-12 and, we're serving 100+ kids, which, is the goal, then, we'll come back at that point in time and I'll lobby, at that point in time to have an administrator at full time. We've got talented folks here. We can, we'll make it work.
How many students did you have at Elanco?
When I left, we were serving just under 200 kids with virtual. Now, that's not just virtual academy kids that are doing online. We got some all-dead kids that did, we got our own all-dead in-house. So those students were using online. We got a credit recovery program at our high school. Those kids were using online. We had high school students that had one online course as part of their schedule. So when I say just under 200, that's all those different options together. As far as purely virtual academy students that had a schedule that was mostly online or blended, it was right around 50 to 55.
Thank you.
Yep.
So looking at some of the budget impact items, there were a few that I wanted to touch on for next week, and I'll probably make an amendment to the proposed budget to exclude these items, but I also want to give the administration administration ample opportunity to defend them. But two items that I think we can cut from the budget impact items, and they're small, but I think it's important that we look to produce everything we can, as Jerry was saying, was the complete Chromebook sets in grade 4 for all the buildings, and the senior high STEM full spectrum laser. A little bit on the Chromebooks, I think my thinking is that I just don't believe that those belong in the elementary schools. And I know that we have carts there. I don't think that we need to do a one-to-one, and I think there's a lot of necessity to continue the traditional handwritten piece. I can tell you that as a graduate of Exeter, I have advanced computer skills than a lot of my peers, and it blew my mind, and I did not have any type of exposure like we have now. And I think that they're going to be marketable without these in the long term, and I think that there won't be any challenges to their success in the later grades. And that's just where I'm at. In terms of the senior high STEM full spectrum laser, I thought this was actually for the junior high school. I don't know if that's correct. Was this for the full spectrum laser? I thought this was for the junior high school STEM program.
I believe that's correct.
Yeah.
I believe that's correct.
So I think, I think it was Mr. School's proposal that I was reading through, and I understand the desire and the interest and the value it has to really be like, wow, that's amazing, we get to learn about the use of lasers. I think in the budget where we're looking at, I think this is one of the areas where we can say, this is not somewhere where we can afford to go right now. And I realize that it's small, but I think that we need to start looking at all these creatively or proactively. And I think that this is one of those items that meets the threshold of being a one and not a need at this time.
Hunter, as far as the full spectrum laser, and I'll do some research and I'll give you some information. ECIU did a joint grant with Kutztown Area School District. It's the EPIC program, and part of that grant is STEM lending libraries. They were going to put one at ECIU and one in Kutztown School District. They're still formulating the list of what items they're going to have in that lending library. I have it in an email, I just can't pull it up on my phone right now. I'm not sure if that full spectrum laser is in the lending library. If it is, that it might be something that we could look at. Especially if there are just certain projects during the year where that's used more extensively. But I'll do some additional research into that.
And to your point, we'll certainly do what we need to do as the wishes of the board. As Dr. Winter said, the STEM program, we're looking at the lending library. But again, as I said, there are some tough decisions to be made, and the STEM program in the district has been very well received. So that there is a want to continue to grow that program. What I will say about the grade 4 Chromebooks, in due respect to what you said about your computer level, the students in 4th grade will be having jobs that we don't even know about right now. So they are doing things, we're kindergartners coding. It's amazing to see those children, what they do with technology. I know our staff would do a tremendous job in growing them with their technology needs. There's a lot of things that can be done in the Chromebooks. We've seen that just in taking it down to 5th and 6th grade. But again, as Dr. Hemberger had stated, the philosophy of the district, if it's to change, will certainly fall within those constraints.
I was actually going to touch on the Chromebooks as well. I'm also not in support of them. My son is going to 5th grade next year, and the last thing that he needs, in my opinion, as his mother, is to be sitting in front of a computer any longer than what he already wants to, and I don't allow him to at home. And probably the exception to the rule as a parent, that we don't do a lot of video games and iPads and things like that. And to be honest, I already feel like he does more of that at school than he does at home. So it's already kind of against my beliefs. Just today, the Walking Creek memory book came out, and not to say that there were tons of these pictures, but they definitely caught my eye every time I saw one. It was a picture of a child holding an iPad. And I'm sure that they're being used for wonderful things. I just don't believe that my child in 4th grade needs to be in front of a Chromebook. Not that he's going to be in front of it all day long, but between the Chromebook, the iPad, and then he comes home and he wants to watch TV and play video games and all those things. So I agree, I'm not in support of it in fourth grade. Sixth grade, great, but not fourth grade.
I just also wanted to ask a question quick about our use of projectors and, what was the other one here? Whiteboards? Yes, thank you. The whiteboards and the smart boards. Have we looked at doing any type of the mobile classroom setup with using computer carts or I guess outfitting computer carts to be able to move to classrooms? Because it's my understanding, and I could be wrong here, that there are teachers who prefer to use them and teachers who don't really use them for anything more than a projector screen. Do we need to purchase new smart boards, some of these new projectors, when we may not actually need them for every classroom? I know this was something that we had talked about, and at this point I'm not decided on voting no against those, but I'm questioning that because I know that we can get creative about the use of our space, and we don't need to be we don't need to be stuck to every classroom needs to have the same thing so we can accomplish the same thing in each classroom, because we know that doesn't fit how we do everything. Obviously we have computer labs, then we also have science labs. We won't be able to outfit and specialize each of the rooms to accomplish every set of goals that we have for every classroom in one classroom. And I'm just wondering if this would be a part of that.
These whiteboards and overheads are not new, they're replacements.
Right.
But again, if the philosophy of the board is to change, then we'll certainly fall within those restraints.
Well, I'd like to jump in here because the philosophy of the board really needs to be driven by the philosophy of the administration. We really, none of us, one of us is educated. Two of us are educated.
The majority of us are not educated.
The majority of us are not educators. And, I appreciate all the discussion that we're having here, but we're talking about stuff that's truly going to impact the learning environment. And, I think as a board, we have got to have a much wider discussion with the stakeholders, in this community, in the larger community, because if you're going to spend less on staff, you're going to spend less on technology, you're going to offer fewer electives, you're going to have larger class sizes, you're potentially going to close schools, then those are discussions that we can't take as a board. Those are discussions that we have to have as a much larger community. And sometimes we get caught in the echo chamber here. And granted, I think that the district has tried to do a really good job of managing the budget. I feel at times that our state legislature is sitting back and eating a bag of popcorn as they're watching us fight with each other, because we want to blame it on the teachers, we want to blame it on the administrators, we blame it on each other, when the reality is we have been saddled with increases in pension, just forced on us by the state government. They put unreasonable expectations on us regarding timelines. And then what we do here is we have to pass it on to our taxpayers, and then we fight amongst each other. And we've got to figure out, like Dave said, we've got to put pressure on our state reps. And perhaps that pressure is taking us to the brink. And I don't know what that means, but I think whatever we're going to do, we have to do it together, and we have to do it as a group. Because I did talk to Jerry at May Days over the weekend. I talked to a lot of people at May Days over the weekend, and most of us, our biggest asset that we have is our property. And our property values are tied significantly to the performance of the school district. So we have to balance this, managing this budget with not letting our district develop a reputation for providing a bad education, because it materially will affect your single largest asset. It just will. The struggle that we have is, I work in a hospital, right? And the tools that we have as a school board to address this problem wouldn't be dissimilar from me asking a doctor to go into the operating room and perform open heart surgery with a sharp rock, a piece of yarn, and a fish hook. Because we don't have the ability to execute on what we need to execute to take the burden off of our community. The only way we can do that is to have a larger discussion, be sensible about what we're doing, and really start to get our arms around these issues the best that we can as a community. It can't be you waiting for us, it can't be us waiting for you, and it can't be all these people being silent either. We've got to figure out how we're going to fix the problem, because nobody is coming to our rescue. They're not. You know, we have to rescue ourselves.
No, I appreciate that, Mr. Japina, and I think the recommendations that we brought to the board, we stand behind. But I'm also going to understand that when the board tells us what to do, we're going to do it, and we'll find a way to make it work. But no, I think you bring up a good point. You know, if we're going to make hard decisions, it's not just in this room that the decisions are going to be affected. I mean, we're going to change the way we do things as far as choice, offerings, that we need to have parents involved, we need to have taxpayers involved, we need to have students involved, because it will change the face of the district.
One of the things I think, sorry, Dave, I think, Dave, you've made some very good points, Mike. I think that when we looked at this issue 6 or 7 years ago, Joe Staub was sitting in your seat saying pretty much, we're in an endless battle that we won't win. So the question is whether we want to end our game early or end our game late, basically, because we will run out of money. Just because of the pension crisis going to draw it out. As Ann's pointed out, regardless of how much you increase your taxes, you can't keep up with the amount of money it takes to run the operation. Speaking of your points, Hunter, I think that when we start going into the education system without looking at what the justification for things is, I think we risk saying we start getting into the program where it's really not our job to look at programs. Our job is to oversee the whole overall site of the school district. When it comes to one-to-one programs, maybe we need to have definition of why they're thinking that's justified coming down in the 4th grade. But the program is they're looking at building it, or looking at whiteboards. What are we doing with them? How much are they used? What's the possibility of other alternatives for that? But I don't think we want to get into the point where we're starting to run the day-to-day operation, because that's not our responsibility. I think that we have hired very good professionals. They're going to give us advice, and then we're supposed to look at that advice and then speak in a cordial manner about, you know, can we really do that from a fiscal state? Our job is to look at everything fiscally. Their job is to look at everything from, when we use the word pie in the sky in some ways, because their goal is, in the end, is really they want to provide the best thing ever. And sometimes, unfortunately, we can't provide that, but I think at the same time, we have to always make sure that we let the professionals do the professional job, and we do as a board what the board does. So I appreciate everybody here. Just, you know, I think we have to make sure we keep everything in balance.
Yeah, and I think in the interest of time, this has been a great discussion. I really appreciate it. I think in the interest of time, I know we have more on the agenda this evening. Christy still has a report that she wants to do for us. And we have a full agenda, so I mean, and we have an executive session afterwards, so I know we don't want to be here till 11 o'clock at night. Are there any other major points that anybody really would like to make relative to the budget? And if we understand Ann's recommendation, I think at this point right now, I think we know we're getting into Monday in terms of her, you know, basic recommendation. Some comments about it. Sort of are offering a thought, and then otherwise we know we're getting into. I think everybody has a sense of what that proposed budget is going to primarily be presented as. So if there are no other comments, I think we should move on. Thanks everybody again. And Christy, I'm going to turn it over to you and for your presentation. I'm sure it'll be wonderful and short. Simple and
Yeah, you're not going to. So I'd like to be able to highlight every teacher that I have the privilege to work with at Lorraine, but that in the interest of time, that's just not going to happen. But I would like to highlight J.Z. Whitney, who's here with us this evening. I have in the board report that I presented that Josie for the past 6 years has been working with CHOP to do a Play-Doh donation. This was driven by a family of ours, the Heckman family. Their son, Jason, was diagnosed at 4 years old with neuroblastoma. The
rate of the cure for that is extremely low. And shortly after Jason was diagnosed, he passed away, and it affected our family, our Lorraine family, very hard. We have a bench in his honor in our kindergarten playground. And this year in particular, Jason would have been 4th grade. He would have been leaving us. All of these years, Josie has been dedicated to collecting this Play-Doh. Her and her husband then collect all the Play-Doh and take it down to CHOP. And the importance of that is because the children have such weakened immune systems that they can only play with it one time. And anyone that has a child knows that kids love to play with it. So I just wanted to say thank you to Josie for doing that, and also keeping Jason's memory alive, because again, that he's an important part of our Lane family. So thank you.
You stand up.
There was really only 2 other things that I would. Oh, I'm sorry, Jason.
Nope, she just wants to say a little bit.
No, Josie didn't really want to say anything. Thank you. I know that some of you, actually, Dr. Herring has already purchased Play-Doh and given to me in the past. Some other board members have also given to me in the past, and I have to say that it's not just me. I feel like I should have my whole Lorraine staff and all the students and everybody else up here standing with me, because it's not just a one-man show. Yes, I do collect it and I do get it started, but if it weren't for the family that I have in Lorraine, it would never be as successful as it is today. So thank you to those of you who have donated, and if you haven't, you can. Just send it to me over at Lorraine. I would love to get it. So my goal this year is 2,000 cans of Play-Doh, and we're about halfway there. So thank you.
Thank you.
I swear that I did not have a sneak peek at the agenda tonight, because the 2 other topics that I wanted to touch upon is some of the things that we are trying to do at Lorraine to bring in some extra money in combination with ECF, and then also how we are working together as a staff to address students who have some mental health needs, maybe have had some trauma. So I'd like to, Emily Seeberger is not here tonight, but through the ECF, Amy Lutz, who has been amazing, shared with us an opportunity to have Ms. Garrett come out, do a presentation on recycling, and then also we were able to apply for a grant. The grant that we applied for was $2,500, and it was for a sensory pack that we will be adding to our school for students who have needs such as OT needs, where they just have to get up and move around. We were just notified within the last month that we received the entire amount, the entire $2,500. So we are very grateful for that. I again like to thank the ECF for putting things on wish list for us. 2 things that were put on wish list were My Little Library by Mary Firestone, and Josie Whitney put on recess equipment. The recess equipment was donated to Josie's room by Dr. Herring, who's happens to be here with us this evening, and the My Little Library was donated to the school by Ange Tuck, a former Lorraine parent. We're really excited about My Little Library because we also had a parent donate a Trex bench that we're going to put, if we're allowed, put up front with the My Little Library and create almost like a reading nook for our students. So in the summer, if they come to play at the playground, they have somewhere they can stop, take out a book, perhaps read, and create a nice space for them. The one thing that I brought, I should have probably given it to you as you were going through the budget, but it is something that Dr. Winters actually helped us to get. We're very committed to providing tools, sensory tools for our students who have any type of needs. And that's just not special needs students. I mean, many of you tonight are playing with the stress ball. So some of the things that are in there are things like a stress ball. There's kinetic sand in here. There's cards that will teach students how to breathe. And again, this is something that we're wanting to do for all of our students. So with Dr. Winter's help, we were able to get the funds that we needed and create a box like this that's going to go into every single classroom. So in combination with our sensory pack that will be added next year, this will also be going into classrooms, and then Emily Seeberger will be teaching students lessons on how to use these tools appropriately, because it's important that kids have a self-awareness of the way that they're feeling when they're happy, but when they're upset, when they're angry, when they're sad, and then how to deal with those feelings appropriately. So those were the two things that I wanted to highlight. I hope that was short and sweet, and if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Since I didn't have a chance to talk to you since you completed, congratulations, Joey Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you've done.
We pressed the buttons at the same time. I wanted to.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you. And I couldn't have done it without the support of my colleagues. They were sometimes my biggest champions and cheerleaders. There was a couple times that I'm not telling this anymore.
Dr. Halley, can you just introduce some of your staff that sat through this tonight, just so we can do that?
So I have Trisha Cupid here, who is a second grade teacher, actually before second grade teacher, and then of course Josie Whitney, and I don't think anyone else is here, but there's three ladies over here.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Dr. Howard. Okay, we're going to dig into the agenda that will be in front of the board next Monday evening. A reminder that our board meeting will be next Monday evening because of the elections of the yeah, definitely. We will have two sets of board voting minutes, one for the board workshop, voting meeting. We will have several policies for second reading. I won't go into any detail on these. You've seen the first several, A through I. For second reading, you've all had a chance to see those for past 2 months. And if there are any additional questions or concerns, feel free to let Napoli know. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions about any of these as well. These are primarily 600 area, which has to do with our school finance. Also transportation item 10 and 10.1 for second reading. Getting into first reading, unless there are any concerns from anyone, I'm assuming you've had a chance to scan through these. We'll have one on payroll authorization at 614. 615 is payroll deduction, 616 is payment of bills, 617 is cash, 618 student activity funds, 619 district audit, 620 fund balance, and 618.1 will be deleted. The recommendation for that policy is to convert it to administrative regulation because of the amount of detail that's really unnecessary in the policy. Was there any questions, any discussion on any of those for first reading? Okay, we'll turn it over to business functions, Mr. Brown.
Next week we'll be voting on participation in the Berks County Joint Purchasing Board for a number of items, new trash and recycling removal services, 2019-2020 Food Service Department proposed final budget, Capital Projects Fund proposed final budget, two things that this guy just went over, as well as the proposed general fund budget. Appointment of treasurer, which we may need to talk about tonight.
Yes, I'd like to have a conversation.
Okay. Appointment of solicitor and budget.
So, you know, I had a chance to talk to Mrs. Page, who served as our treasurer. She's not running for re-election, and her term is up in December. And I asked her whether or not she was interested in continuing as treasurer now until December. She said, no, I don't think that's really necessary. I think we should elect someone new to be treasurer and serve a full year. So I think
what we need to do is to hear from folks, anyone who may be interested in serving. Obviously, we can make nominations, but it would be interesting if someone actually wanted to serve as treasurer. I'm thinking primarily those people who are not running for re-election at this point right now, who you know will be serving a full term. So that leaves 3 people on the current board that I would, I would suggest. So I don't know. Any thoughts about it?
I just have a quick question. Do we need to appoint a board member to be the treasurer and a staff member to be the treasurer?
No, the staff member can be a treasurer. Can.
Okay.
The assistant business manager in the past has been appointed as treasurer. But I do want to clarify, I asked Sean Bockinger, somebody could be appointed through November, and if they aren't seated again in December, we would appoint someone else.
Yeah, we could do that. Yeah, I know we could do that. I'm just not sure whether that's the best way. Proceed.
It would be better with continuity of someone that we would be potentially continuing on.
I agree. So I think there are 3 folks. Between now and next Monday, it would be nice to hear from anyone who would be willing to serve in that capacity. And then we can make a nomination, and if there's more than one person, we can subject that to a vote.
The only one who looks interested to me is Sharon.
Second.
You're still on
So
too, right?
So no voting tonight, but we will we'll have to make that determination next Monday. So please, my suggestion would be send me and Dr. Phillips an email of interest if you would like to serve in that interest.
If nobody's interested, can we appoint a staff member, an assistant business manager to be the treasurer? I'm not sure other than signatory. I know that Ann comes in, I know that Pat comes into the business office to inspect the treasurer's report. But it seems to me like in most cases that would be a formality, and there is segregation of duties in the business office. So I'm not interested. So if the other 2 or any of the other board members aren't interested, I think it would probably be a good thing to have with the staff.
The primary role that Pat played and other board treasurers play is really looking at all the invoices and documentation and questioning disbursements that you're going to approve on a monthly basis. She does a sample of about 10%. And it's really a very important thing for someone to do. But I was the treasurer as the assistant for a number of years. I mean, Lena currently puts together the treasurer's report. I review it. I review all the invoices. There's a lot of controls in place. But under either scenario it works.
Is that like once a month, that's fine?
Once a month, the Friday before the voting meeting.
I just have one question. About a year ago, we made a decision to no longer have the solicitor attend the board meetings on a regular basis. And I'd just be curious if at the next meeting, we could have a look at our legal expenses to just do a comparison from the year prior to the current year, just to see where we are.
And that item is on, at least the appointment of Sue Stevens is on the agenda for next week. Talking to Dr. Phillips, the staff who rely upon the attorneys for ongoing counsel and advice, my understanding is that this is your recommendation to continue the service, and you feel very you're satisfied.
Very comfortable with this service.
It's nice to have continuity of legal counsel.
It's also an advantage with all the different things going on. They're all in the same office, so they do talk. We're not charged for that, but they do talk. We have another situation coming up again. Someone in-house is handling it, so the continuity does help.
Mike, can I ask what you're looking for in that? Are you looking for multiple years comparisons?
No, a decision was made to cut costs by reducing the presence of the legal counsel at the board meetings. So, I'm looking to see if we actually save money over the course of the year, because the possibility could be that we still had to engage legal counsel, they just didn't come to board meetings. The downside of that is that we haven't saved any money, and we've also lost the speediness with which we could handle a legal issue, because they weren't right here and right present to address. What I would like, what I'm looking to see, is a pretty significant reduction in legal costs, based on the fact that we've decided not to have any meetings. So that was what drove that decision a year ago.
And I'm not sure that's necessarily going to be the outcome because of other circumstances that arise. For instance, there are things that happen in the course of the year, where we rely upon legal counsel for labor decisions and complex issues that come up, and it may vary from year to year. I mean, I can say, as we're sitting here as a board, I can't recall a situation recently where we really felt at a loss because there was an attorney sitting here. Because normally, as we said, districts typically are willing to the boards are willing to either table an item or to go back and talk to their legal counsel, after we get clarification on something. I don't feel like we've been hamstrung or disadvantaged by not having them here. And obviously, when they come here, we incur the cost for them getting here, for your time that they're sitting here, and their time home. And that's at $160 an hour, which I think is
No, that's fair enough. I hear what you're saying, and maybe I'll go back to what Jerry's recommending, which is let's look at legal costs over the last 3 years.
Yeah, that's ultimately what I'm getting at.
Well, I think part of the problem with that discussion is during that period, we had John Mosley, and he was a local solicitor who had been serving the district pretty much for his whole career. I don't know how long exactly, but and he was also a local individual. He was an alumnus. There's all these other factors that now you're actually going outside to acquire legal services. So I think looking at 3-year history is very challenging right now, because we don't have 3 years with one provider. We have.
They haven't been 3 years?
No.
So then why don't we look at billable hours? I mean, what I'm trying to get at is when attorneys go in billable hours, they go by a quarter hour. Let's just see I'm just curious as to what our legal costs are. And I don't know if there's a way that they can break down those costs, to your point. Are they personnel issues? Are they regulatory issues? What are they? I'd just like for us to have an idea of what we're paying for.
I think that's a good idea. And I don't know whether it's so much the performance of legal counsel as it might be how our administration currently utilizes legal services, because we pick up the phone and we make the phone call. And I don't think that has anything to do necessarily. So I'm saying if you're going to judge their value or their, based upon the expense, I think it's good to look at it. It's really important to look at it because it might serve to have our administrators take a moment to pause before they actually dial the phone and pick up the phone and spend $160 an hour for a phone call. Because I know that's part of what we do.
We can break that in a couple ways, like billable hours by one, areas of charge by another. We can certainly try to get some explanation for those charges as well as just do the 1 year trend. So we can get about 3 or 4 different ways for you to look at it.
Just year over year comparison, if there's some breakdown. Attorneys are really, really good about keeping billable hours, so that shouldn't be a problem.
Yep.
Anything else, Mr. Dalton, business functions?
No, sir.
Personnel Committee, Mr. Japina.
So the Personnel Committee will be reviewing retirements. I'm not going to go through all these unless you make resignations, appointments of both certificated substitutes and support staff, change of status, leaves of absence, summer professional development presenters, summer professional development committee meetings, extended contracts, course requests, and staff.
I just have a quick question about the contract extensions. I remember that this happened last year. Is there a reason that we have to go through this every year? Is it that some years we may not need to extend the contract of the secretaries, or I think there was another personnel group in here?
I believe it's procedural.
Okay.
It should be done every year.
Like, for the record, you left it at that.
Any other discussion on personnel? Okay, we're going to move to student comments. Mrs. Stratton.
We're reporting on field trips that occur within 60-mile radius. We're going to be voting on several extended school year agreements with various schools. Approval of the Act 80 date for the last day of the student day, and settlement and release agreement.
Dr. Pope, could you explain the Act 80 day?
Sure. Due to the snow days, we extended the school year by a few days. We took back some holiday days. The graduation is on the 6th, that's a half a day, and then Friday is a half a day. We had one day extended. We have enough educational days and hours in to qualify. We don't have any issues with the state. It was thought that, just think we're going to get a lot of kids to come in on a Monday. And we do have the need to bring the teachers in for some Act 44 in servicing, as well as curriculum in servicing in a lot of areas. So we discussed using it as an Act 80 day. That was really short of it.
I just want to say I totally support and agree with that decision. I think it's a great decision. My only request or hope that would be that in the future, I don't know if this decision could have been made at the April meeting. I know there's some parents that have some concern over, they've kind of got the buzz that this might be happening, and they're already saying, what am I going to do with childcare? Now, it's only half a day, we may say, but for some people, that's a tough day. So, you know, if we could have planned for this in April, we probably could have thought about this maybe not. Just an old
When you say have it, the 10th is the only day we're talking about. The 6th and the 7th were already in the calendar.
Yes.
As far as the 10th goes, and I'll be quite honest with you, the way the schedule has been going with the weather, up until a week ago, I mean, it snowed yesterday up in the northern area. So we were really hanging in there to decide, you know, if it would have gotten to 2 and 3 days in the week, we probably would have extended it for an educational purpose. So we really tried to sit on it to make sure that we didn't put our foot in our mouth and then have to come back to the board with another day. But I understand, I'm trying to make it as soon as possible.
And I take that answer as a good answer. Just, you know, being a parent and knowing that this is something that they have some concern about.
Understood.
Just let you know their perspective.
Understood.
Everyone's got a perspective, right?
Understood.
Thank you, Mrs. Stratton. Curriculum.
I have one question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
On item number 9, the extended school year agreement with Holden Learning. It's a tiny little thing, but it jumped out.
Number 9?
B, I'm sorry. It's listed as 9 here. My bad. 9B, correct. Last paragraph, or last sentence, at a cost of $400 a day per student for a total cost of approximately $10,000 per student. A couple of other things list exact numbers. Where does approximately end and start? Is it like $1 over, $10 over?
Dr. Bo, you can correct me, but I believe it's just the amount of days that are going to be provided for the students.
It's not a days.
The calendars,
Oh, so it's in flux.
well, I mean, depending on if they have it on a certain holiday day, it would be charged for that day. If they end in August 5th, they August 10th, so I think it's just a day thing.
Anything else under student functions? Okay. Dr. McClendon, curriculum.
Since we'll be looking into motorized miscellaneous to submit grants, federal, state, Title 1, 2, 3, 4, and Ready to Learn. And then the next items are a list of textbooks in science and social studies. B is forensics, amount of $5,825. Physical science books at the high school, $6,610.86. Chemistry books, $13,050. AP Economics at $7,202.12. Grade 7 and 8 science textbooks, that would be 20. Well, 7 is $27,733.42, and then 8, $30,354. And also 7 and 8, item 8, 7 and 8 grade social studies. So 7 is, 7th grade is $25,851.15. 8th grade, $30,112.80. And item I is grade 5 and 6 social studies textbooks. So that's $26,070.40 for grade 5 and $29,868.60 for grade 6. And just want to mention that it's been 12 to 14 years since the science and social studies books were last purchased. And that includes the textbooks and digital access as well. And then item J is voting to approve an agreement with Rainier Community College to continue offering home enrollment to our students.
Any discussion on that? Thank you, Dr. McClung. Mr. Brady, facilities committee.
We recommended board school directors approve fund equipment technology for the senior high roof for the cost of $794,764.52 for repair work, and also a longer term warranty on sections.
That is the end of our workshop agenda. I want to thank folks for coming out. We will be having an executive session for personnel and legal matters immediately following this meeting. Thank you.